Open source is really important for two reasons. How many of you in this room actually know what open source means? How many don't? Okay, so I'm not going to waste time explaining it. Open source is important because the free software community really presented a model to the content community about what participatory culture could look like. And I think we're still in the content community lagging behind the open source guys by something like 10 years in terms of getting the licenses out, getting the community together, et cetera, et cetera. The other reason I think this stuff is really important, how many people were at the panel yesterday, midday, where we actually discussed the availability of tools? Anybody here? Okay. There just are no tools out there that can deliver standard codecs that are universally accessible, that are easy to use, that people can find. So there are a number of competing solutions to actually enable peer-produced culture out there, but there's no single kind of place that people can go to become educated and to form a community around this kind of cultural production. So I think the work that these people on this panel are doing is phenomenally important. That's my spiel, and I'll let them talk more about it. So we have four great panelists. The moderator is Kenyatta Cheese. Kenyatta is a producer for Rocket Boom, excuse me, the online video project. He's also been a senior technical manager at IBEAM Center for Art and Technology and director of tech for the public access juggernaut, Manhattan Neighborhood Network, home of Checkerboard Kids, my favorite, personal favorite community TV show. In his off time, Kenyatta serves on the board of Wizzy Digital, which develops and deploys low-cost ICT labs in rural communities. He was just telling me about it and about his work in South Africa, and it's fantastically interesting, very important, and also very kludgy in some interesting ways. Tiffany Cheng is, where's Tiffany? She walked out. Okay, Tiffany Cheng, whose outline is sitting in this chair, is a co-founder of the Participatory Culture Foundation, whose sticker I just put on the back of my laptop. She is from Worcester, Mass. And did I pronounce that right? Is it Worcester? Worcester, Mass. She's from Worcester, Mass. Has a BS in engineering and urban planning from Cooper Union. She's worked in nonprofit urban planning and public policy-oriented organizations. Jay Dedman began as a writer and producer of local news in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Atlanta. After working at CNN International, he became discouraged with the coverage and worked as a freelance journalist in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where he first tried to use the internet to publish video showing how people live in a country at war. Returning to New York, he landed a job at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. That seems to be, the guiding theme of this panel. One of the leading public access stations in the U.S. and home of Checkerboard Kids, my favorite community TV show. He continued his experiments with putting video on the web until he found that blogging was the perfect distribution method. In 2004, he co-founded the Video Blogging Group. He has since helped orchestrate VloggerCon, HMWV, a cool way to raise money for vloggers, Node 101, and one of the first video blogging books. And Ryan Hodson, who has been all over this conference, is the primary producer and editor for RyanEdit.com. She blogs at RyanIsHungry.com also. She's co-author of The Secrets of Video Blogging, and published by whom? By Peach Pit Press, and co-creator of freevlog.org, which offers free tools to help teach and spread video blogging. Current projects include showinabox.tv, using open source tools to turn WordPress into the ultimate blogging and vlogging platform. Take it away, Kenyatta.
Wow, take it away. See, this is, I have the easiest job in the world. So Aaron did a great job of introducing everyone, and I really actually have nothing to say. I'm up here with like three like, no, I'm up here with like three like ghetto superstars of like practice. So we should probably just go ahead and get right into talking about your guys' projects, and then we'll go to a Q&A where we'll try to talk a little bit more about open source in general, what's out there, where this stuff works and where we see room for improvement and stuff. And then
cool.
Call it that, yeah.
Yep. So I was going to do a quick kind of like overarching kind of like framing real quick, just to kind of give everyone an idea. It's cool if I stand over here, camera people? All right. So up here, I just kind of wrote out, this is the way video works right now for video on the web. You record a video, you edit it, it's got to be compressed into some kind of codec. It's got to be hosted somewhere. You would put it on a CMS, that's content management system. So that could be at YouTube, it could be Blogger or WordPress. It's got to be distributed somehow, or could be, like it's Miro or iTunes or something. You have community sites where it would go out to like a YouTube or VO or our media. And then, archiving is a really important part of this, I think, is that you don't want to just put your stuff up there and then it disappear. You want to make sure that it exists somewhere. So, these are the things that are important to a video creator. So we're here to talk about a free and open system end to end. And what that means is that all of these things would be using free and open software. So it would not be proprietary, which means that anyone can go in there and you could change it. No one could take it away from you. You wouldn't get an update on your computer with a message like, well, you now have to pay $99 to get that back, these kind of things. Now, I personally am not up here saying that anything commercial is bad. I think there's a nice ecology between commercial systems and open source. A lot of commercial entities use open source software and tools, but then sell you the services around it. John Seeley Brown is yesterday in that its plenary talked about how commercial systems don't create communities. These communities already exist, and a lot of it has existed for a long time, and a lot of us have been building our own tools. And then what a lot of companies come in is they see that there is this community, they see what they need and the tools that they've built, very often under-resourced, and then they raise a capital to then make a commercial service to serve those needs. So something like at YouTube, as much as I love it, they didn't create that world. This world is already created. They've just been able to kind of explode it.
Did you say explode or exploit?
Well, that is to be talked about. My personal goal in all this is to break down cultural and geographic barriers. That is something that John Seeley Brown also talked about, that, the big problem in this world is that we don't understand each other. We don't understand Iranians, they don't understand us, we listen to our leaders, blah, blah, blah. So, how do you create a system where we can all find out about each other and we can all talk to each other? Well, many of us believe that online video is something that could solve that. And when you start thinking on that kind of scale, you got to make sure that everyone can get in the door, You can't have it where it's money keeps people from joining the game, You can't have it to where people are afraid because of censorship, or afraid that if they post something, they might get hurt by their government. So that's, again, why free and open is very important, so then we can make sure we can control those things, and it's not just going through a private company. So all of these things have not been solved. There are a lot of holes here, a lot of things that need to be fixed or built. A lot of the stuff is being built, but it's not really usable yet, We're going to hear about some of the things that can be used right now, and then obviously we can have a conversation, and maybe we can figure out if we need to do more education, or if we want to have a debate about what is needed or not is needed. Real quick story, because I think stories are very important. Ryan and I have taught a lot of video blogging, its classes around the world. And one place we taught it in was in like Thailand. So we're in Thailand and we're like teaching a group of kids, students, how to, it's video blog. And I go with my like nice shiny Mac here, you know. I got like a really cool little camera and I'm teaching them how to, it's video blog. And it's a little bit embarrassing because I start realizing like when I walk out of that class, they don't have access to any of its stuff. They aren't going to be able to buy a cool Macintosh with iMovie. And, you know, and ultimately what you have to do is tell them, steal, you know. You got to steal the software you're going to need, you know. You have to, and that's not a good way to start, you know. That's not a good way, that's not a good way to build a community, you know. And so that's what I think all of us are trying to do here, is where you can walk into anywhere on the planet, you know, talk to anyone and say, if you can get your hands on a cheap PC, this is what you need to do to get it going. And these are the places where you can upload to and you can feel safe, and these are the communities who will help you and support you. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm done.
I can go
Plus
next.
point. Yeah.
I also just want to clarify too, when we say free, we mean free as in freedom, not as in beer.
Or freeze in price.
Like free.
Or free as in price. A lot of open source free software is free, like you don't have to pay for it, but also it means the freedom to use it how you like. So that's just a clarification.
One thing that was really great about the description, tiny little thing, but it means so much, is that we're talking about free and open source software. As Jay was mentioning before, you know, there's a lot of incentive for folks for companies, for individuals to create spaces that are free for you to use, but once you start using it, you're addicted to that system. YouTube for hosting, iMovie or Windows Media Maker, you know, with your computer you buy, that sort of thing. For most users, it's not a problem. But once you start getting questions about rights and ownership and self-determination and whether or not someone can actually afford, you know, that piece of hardware itself in certain communities, that's when the idea of something being free and open source, where you go in, change, and do with it what you will, becomes extremely important. So.
That looks crazy.
I turned to yellow.
Well, as long as you can see it and read it, then we're good. So Jay and I have been working on a project called Show in a Box. Oh, yay, that looks better. Show in a Box is a project that's made up of a whole handful of video bloggers, basically. We're not a business. We're not a service, really. We're just a crew of people who are, as you can see here, this was a hackathon that we had in our living room with like 12 people sleeping over and hanging out, just building stuff for WordPress. The goal of Show in a Box is to create sort of open source tools for good looking and well functioning video blogs. And the platform we use is WordPress, which is a content management system blog platform that's open source and totally hackable. You can build things for it. You can design it however you want, make it function how you want, put it on your own server, have total control. And so the problem we're trying to solve is, making a place for creators and storytellers and artists to have a really nice looking website that doesn't exactly function like a blog. Like, for instance, this is my personal blog that I've had for the last 3 years. It's hosted on Blogger, which is just a free service, free as in price, that's actually run by Google. And so you can see how it's formatted. It's kind of a journal diary format. It's done by date. You can kind of see it's in chronological order. I have archives over here, but they're not very visual. It's just like check out the date, see what was made then, and you know, you're kind of scrolling. I have like 450 videos on my blog, and you're only seeing about 10 of them right here. So that's kind of an issue for me. It doesn't really bring my whole body of work alive. It's just kind of sitting on a, it's not static because it gets updated, but it's, you know, I have all these categories and things, and they're not very visual at all. So that's kind of an issue. Here's another project. This was a road trip that actually, it happens to be my sister, who's also a video blogger, did, where she traveled around the country and she documented sustainability in different forms, kind of the green movement that's happening in the United States. So she interviewed all these people and you know, documented all these projects of things that people were doing. That's her. But the issue is that it's in this diary format. It's all this really, it's still relevant information. It's things that people are doing, projects that other people can learn from. I still reference a lot of these videos when I'm thinking about different ideas and trying to share them. But again, it's in this like, you know, one after another format. The last post that she did isn't relevant as the last post. I mean, it's just an interview that she did that's as relevant as the first interview she did. So this blog format just is very limiting for her work. And it feels very static because it's over, so it seems like, oh, she hasn't touched the site since whenever the date is there. So it's kind of limiting. Another project we had some involvement in was Swijana. It's a video blog about life in India. So we went to India almost 2 years ago, and we met these kids who are video and filmmakers, and we were like, you guys have to start a blog, and let's get you showing what it's like here, just out in the streets. And again, they stopped doing work for the time being, and again, it's very static. It's like we just have no way of showing their archive in a very visual, interactive way. So that's a problem. So let's see. The solution for this, we think, is getting things to be more visual. So for Show in a Box, this is another site that Jay and I produce, where we also document sustainability and green stuff in the United States. And what we were interested in doing was getting our archives to be exposed. So, you know, I had a video about LED lights that we found in Scotland, and I have a bunch of other videos that are related to that. Like, this was made 1.5 years ago, but it's still relevant. It's just an interview with someone who lives totally off the grid. So I want that to come alive. So we helped build a plugin for WordPress to do related videos, where I can go in and say, this is related, this is related, this is related, have it show up on the front page. There are other plugins for text for that, like related posts on WordPress, but nothing that has a thumbnail. I mean, it seems so simple, but we had to build it ourselves because it doesn't exist. Another thing that's kind of related to that are recent videos. So again, there are WordPress plugins for this for text bloggers, but not anything that you know, has visual elements to it. So two pretty simple ideas that took us a while to build those. Another great plugin that we helped build is called VPIP, which stands for Videos Playing in Place. And actually, this is the only piece of software plugin that does this, where you can pick any format that you want, QuickTime Flash. I have an iPod version, OGG, which is the open source codec. It will all play right here. So I choose QuickTime. I don't know how fast this connection is, but so it's playing QuickTime. If someone says, okay, I want to close that, I actually want to see Flash, click that, it's going to start playing Flash. the other great component about this plugin, and also that seems kind of simple too. Like I want all my formats to play the same right on the page for whoever wants whatever format they want, and have it all play in the same place, not go to another page, not go to another service or whatever. It's just all right there. So that was another very time-consuming piece of work, but we got it built. The other cool part about VPIP is that it separates your formats out, and you can have an RSS feed of each format. So whoever wants to subscribe to QuickTime can, Flash, OGG. We have a separate text blog that they can subscribe to. So that's been awesome, too. That's a huge deal that a lot of people were hacking before. Like, I don't even know how people were doing it because I couldn't even figure it out myself. But now this is more automated. Another thing that we built along with these related videos was a very visual archive. So a lot of ways that you see archives now, like I was showing you before, it's kind of like, by date. It's just like a list of time, and you're like, I don't know what's there. So we built a visual archive to kind of plug in with all the thumbnails that are being shown. So again, very simple thing that you want done, but we had to build it. So this is a great way to show off your archives in a very visual way. So there's also another project that I should show you. This is a group project that we've been doing called Seminal, which means weekly in Spanish. So we're encouraging a whole bunch of people to post one video a week all year long, just to encourage people to keep making stuff and putting it up. And it doesn't matter what it is, just put up a video this week for the whole year. And what we wanted to do was have a group site where you could keep track of all the videos, because it's like right now there's about 50 to 60 active participants, and it's like, how do you watch that? Am I going to subscribe to all their feeds? Like, how am I going to do that? So we really wanted video commenting, or like lists of people's videos right now we're using a WordPress blog because that's what we knew how to hack. But so people are able to embed their videos here, and you can just play them in place using VPIP again. So if you just click here, it's going to start playing right there.
And then it links back to their original video.
And it'll link back to their original post. And actually, I'll show you how this functions. So when you leave a comment on a blog, you usually have your name, your email, your URL. So we added these extra fields. So here's your video URL, your thumbnail, the little picture that you click to play, and the URL to the original post so people can refer back to that and go comment. So that's another plugin that we're offering on Show in a Box too, where it's like, okay, this is really useful if you want to have a conversation with your viewers too, not just have a group project, but have people, it is like the YouTube model in a way where they have video responses right there and it's just posted right away, but we wanted to use a free and open system for that. Yeah.
And I think this is just a good example of, so WordPress is open source, so it means that we could go in and we could just do what it's wanted. And the good thing about this is that hopefully is if we do something that works and people use, then commercial world says, great, we'll use that too. And that's wonderful. So then we've been able to affect change, because if we're just waiting for YouTube or whoever to do it, I don't know if you've ever tried to email at YouTube. They aren't it's responsive, and they have their own agenda, So this is just a good example of how we can be proactive,
Yeah, and so, a lot of this, too, is us, like, scratching our own itch, where we're like, I really want a visual archive. Okay, I guess we have to build it, and then share it. The whole idea, like, if you go on Show in a Box, there's a whole download page where we have all of these things, and we have not very many, but we're going to have tutorials on how to do this. We have a whole tutorial on how to install WordPress on your server, which is not a very short process to document, but it's there. So the next steps for Show in a Box 2 is, as we're still developing these plugins and everything, we want to give people themes. or templates. Like you would be able to download this template and tweak it to make it look like your own site. You know, you would put your own header, and we want to be able to give people, you know, things that they can shift around really easily and make it video centric. Like, you know, your video is very like front and center because most blogs just don't have that. So that's kind of the next step. And anyone can contribute and anyone can use this stuff. We're just totally open to having people. We have an email list and we have a wiki, and we're always just exchanging information all the time and trying to get things built. Is that it? Yeah, it's on the link to the wiki is on this site. I would have to look around. I forget where it is, which is bad.
It's on the About page.
It's on the
Yep.
About page, okay. So,
Cool.
yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks.
So if we see showing the box as a way of a nice way of being able to distribute your content, be able to take it, post it up online, and make it up there available for folks to view. Then the next step is having an easy way for people to get all that content aggregated, watch it and such, which is the key for Tiffany.
Yeah, so all those feeds that we get created on that site would then be used for what she's about to show us.
How many folks watch video blogs, podcasts, that sort of thing? Yeah. Do you do it mostly through going to these sites online in a browser, or are you using iTunes, or using Miro? Browser, iTunes. And then how many folks are syncing them up to like your iPhones or your Zooms or anything else, right? Good number of folks, okay, cool. Which makes Miro a great next thing to talk about. Actually, one other quick question. How many folks here make video? Show of hands. All right. How many folks, everyone kind of watches this stuff online? Regularly, occasionally, All right. Regularly? A lot of regular folks. And how many folks are here just because you kind of study the communities that are going around these folks?
I study it too.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I'm representing Participatory Culture Foundation, and we're a nonprofit organization. And we got our start from a political activist point of view. We saw the explosion of video happening, and you are all testaments to that happening. Tons of people see video, and the spread of video tools as a way to express themselves. And we, coming from the music industry stuff that we've done, we also saw video as this new emerging market that was happening online. And so about 3 years ago, we saw that there were all these tools that were coming out. There were tons of people who wanted to start making video. There were tons of people who were starting to put video up. There were tons of nonprofits giving video cameras to kids and making those tools available. But one of the things that was still missing was it's still the future of online video, which is a player that you have on your computer that basically takes all the video that's online and turn your computer into a TV-like experience. We saw this as a political opportunity. We were trying to be strategic, and we presented this idea to funders who like to fund progressive technologies and like to see the media system open up to more people. So this, we wanted to see that what was going to happen, which still is in its infant stages, and we think will happen, and is happening with iTunes, is video is going to be, or TV is going to be delivered through the internet to your computer, and eventually to your TV. And we saw that this was a tool, this was a player that proprietary or commercial companies would try to make in order to own the space. We didn't want that to happen. And we want to make sure that the online video space is claimed for nonprofits so that's continuously and constantly open to anybody who wants to have their own TV channel and who wants to be able to distribute it to the rest of the world. So we make something called Miro, and you can get it from our website, getmiro.com. And it basically looks like this. You download it, and it once you download it, it goes, I don't know why it looks like this. Do you know how to, well, okay. I think it's just too small. I'm just gonna do this. So, what was that?
It's the little green maximize window.
Oh, right. Okay, thanks. So once it downloads to your computer, you open it up. It does have some setup. It's basically a TV in a box that turns your computer into something that you can just hit play and sit back and watch TV. But in order to help you do that, we have a Miro guide, which is a channel surfer guide that has over 3,500 channels now. These are channels that are submitted by people like you and small and larger companies that have their own online video channels that have been added to the guide, have been approved by our volunteer team, and have been pushed to the front of the page for various reasons. Some down here in our guide because they're the most popular. And the ones that are newly added also get a spot. And you can also search by categories. We have a bunch of categories, and a very popular one is international. There's a bunch of international channels in different foreign languages, which is a really exciting part of Miro. We actually have more downloads outside of the US than we do in the US. We had 2 million downloads last year. We expect about 5 million downloads this year. And we really see this as a great way to distribute your video and as an audience member to get your video. The software is open source and will always be what it is. You can always take what we have, make it better if you'd like, but we're dedicated to making sure that the TV viewing experience on your computer is as easy and also as advanced as you need it to be. So with Miro, we're trying to make a mass consumable product for the very purpose of winning the fight of owning online media, by making sure that online media is constantly open. And so we spend a lot of time making sure that Miro is easy to use. Here are the channels that come pre-subscribed to your list of channels. And the way Miro works is you can see what videos are on any one channel and decide to download it using this blue button. And once it's downloaded, once videos are downloaded, which are downloaded in the background, you just get a little green button all of a sudden that allows you to play a video. So I'll play it. And we can go into full screen. If you move your cursor, all of this stuff we're hoping to be very intuitive, but I'm pointing them out. It might sound complicated, but it's pretty easy to understand. And that once you hit stop on a full screen video, it goes right back to the player, which allows you to, basically surf channels.
And the cool thing I like about this is that, I like to watch things in a browser as well, like on YouTube or something. But, YouTube is small and it's bad quality. With something like this, people can subscribe and download HD quality. There's really no limit. and then
Here's
you
an
can
HD channel.
have something really look good. So for those of us who are interested in quality, something like this is a really good.
Well, we really pushed this idea of downloading videos or streaming videos through Miro on your computer because we see the future of online video as something that people are going to deal with video in a way that's more similar to TV. We know that YouTube is very popular. The short form, low quality video is very popular right now. But I think there are more video makers, and the channel guy is a testament to this, that more people are putting more time into their channels and are actually giving people channels that they want people to subscribe to. So Miro makes that possible. We're helping to create that ecosystem that we think is so important because, I mean, one of the central ideas was to prop up independent producers. Independent producers need that tool, need that player that will play their channel. And Miro allows you to do that because you can play high definition videos. People can subscribe to any RSS feed, any video channel that they find on the internet pretty easily. And just go to add channel and you add, I can go to Ryan's blog, which I have up already. And you can set it, it's very easy to do this. She has subscribed to my feed. And once I click on that, I can hit subscribe now and it automatically grabs Ryan's feed and takes all her videos there. And automatically starts downloading the first video. I don't even have to pay attention to it anymore. I can come back when I'm ready to watch, and there will be a video waiting for me to watch, and if I like it, I can go and download more. I can change my settings to download all her videos if I come as a big fan of Ryan already. There are all these little features that make the viewing experience more customized to what you want, and I think those are the more advanced features that this session I don't really need to go into, but basically we want to give you everything you want for giving your channel or your videos to your audience members. And the other cool thing that I should mention before I forget is that part of the reason why we think that this is going to happen and why it's popular among 2-4 million people now is that people want to be able to save their videos also, and to be able to have this library of videos, which is shown here. I will always have these videos until I decide to delete them, and it gives you the features of like a TiVo and things like that. And
the other good thing about something like this that is free and open source is that Miro plays everything. You can throw anything at it and it plays. And I don't know if people are familiar with the codec issues, but it plays Flash, WMVs, QuickTime, and that's how software should work, But with something like iTunes, which you might think of when you look at this, iTunes plays QuickTime, and that's it. So again, and that's really just.
Quick question: does it play iTunes movie rentals?
What this?
I don't know actually.
Well, if they were no, really.
So
Format.
and that's simply an arbitrary boundary that iTunes is set up because of their company.
Is it arbitrary or is it market?
Or
Well, yeah.
Well, so
iTunes does play MP4's H.264, which is a
true.
right, we do play MP4s.
Oh,
Well,
But hopefully with something like this can push, again, what a lot of open source does is that it forces commercial companies to be more open and to adopt more open platforms because they see that, people just want things to work. They don't want DRM. They don't want things that stop them from, I want to watch what I want to watch, So
Well, so the important piece, the political piece behind all of this is that if a proprietary company is the player that most people use, say when we're at the peak of online video, then they're the ones who control the content. They're the ones who decide what channels come pre-subscribed, and the channels that come pre-subscribed are the ones that get the most airtime. So we then replicate what's happening on broadcast TV. During the plenary session yesterday, I was very glad to hear that everybody was so caring about the whole democratic nature of online video. And in order to maintain that and the very democratic nature of the internet, tools like this and all the other open source tools need to be the main thing that people use. Otherwise, we have proprietary companies like YouTube, like iTunes, that are the ones who make the decisions on what gets watched. And they make those decisions in very small ways that you don't even notice. For example, you need to put in a credit card in iTunes in order to have your channel in iTunes, things like that, which we think, in the end, don't contribute to keeping video open.
Or even something I see was at YouTube. It's very a subtle thing, but someone new going to the front page of YouTube might just assume that the way to get into the game is to make a funny video about your cat, or which isn't a bad thing, but they, by their choices they put on their front page, that kind of sets a tone for what kind of community and how you enter into all this stuff.
Actually, did you
Are you done?
Do you have any additional to say before we start the questions?
Just a few small features that I guess I could add is you can make a channel of anything. So I can go and type in cats into the search, and it'll find all the cat videos on the internet, and all of a sudden I've made a cat channel. So, this is sort of like your YouTube on your Miro player in some ways. You just all of a sudden get all these cat videos. But really, I think that the short form that you see on YouTube has its place. People like it. But I think that there's also going to be a place for the longer form and the subscription channel stuff. And who owns that space is to be decided. And I think it should be something that is open to everyone having a channel.
Saw a bunch of hands go up. How about we start with Sean here, and we're going to work away around the back.
So my question for Tiffany is, how do you guys at Miro choose which programs show up in the guide?
No, all the channels show up in the guide. It's fully searchable, all 3,500 channels. And then we have a team of volunteer moderators. Anybody can be a volunteer moderator that helps to just sort through the channels to make sure that they're appropriate. And we hardly censor. We just make sure that there isn't pornography on the front page, things like that. And we like to promote everybody's channels. So then the most popular stuff, gets rated by our viewers. The other last thing I wanted to mention was that we're starting to do co-branding, which is a few big channels have done this now, PBS, NRK, which is the Norwegian Public Broadcasting, TED TV, and this is actually what you saw was a TED TV co-branded player, which allows TED TV to give the player to their current audience member with their TED TV channel guide and with all of TED TV's channels pre-subscribed. So that's something you as a producer or video maker can also do for yourself and for your audience.
Actually.
I put out a lot of artist videos, and one thing is that they stream, and I was wondering how they get saved so that someone could actually have the video instead of just screen
So there's streams and not downloads, though, right?
We're actually going to be, we have some streaming support actually now, but it's not something that works fully yet, but we're going to be releasing a streaming feature which allows you to stream in the same way that you stream on your website, and you'll be able to save it also. And I didn't show you the features of how to save, but it's just a one-click to
Could we
erase.
also make it so you don't save?
No, actually. There may be a feature in the future that allows people to set their channels to auto-delete videos automatically in people's Miros. But I mean, that's a very contentious point because we think that all video should be as linkable and distributable as possible. And I also believe in creator control, so that's something that we work with and try to get to a point where everybody's satisfied.
Go there, there, or there, and there. Yeah.
What kind of metadata is attached? I mean, is it I assume, but I'm just thinking about Creative Commons, and if
Yeah.
you're downloading
I
it,
wish-
would you know what?
Maybe I should go back up there, but within Miro, when you see a video, you saw that it was a full bar. There's just a little, I forget what color button, that says more, and when you open it, or when you click on it, it opens the video to a larger size, and it shows the metadata information, and we detect whether or not it's Creative Commons, and it shows if it's Creative Commons.
Could you clarify what is more static, one time versus dynamic and ongoing? So for example, you said with the cats example, you're creating a channel for cats. Is that just grabbing the things that currently are marked as cats?
Actually,
is there any updating? Is that ongoing? What?
You could take that URL. Well, okay, the first part of that is that's just a search through all the video search engines, including, I think Google's in there also. We just go through all the different search engines and look for videos that are tagged as cats. And we take the top search results and we display it to you, though you can see further in also. So you can, from that page, download all the cat videos that you're interested in.
So that's a one-time thing.
Right,
So
but you could also, where you saw me open up a little window that said add channel, I could take that a search URL, the result URL, and put it in there. And we actually do scrape from web pages like that. So it could be a channel that sat on the side like that.
So you're doing a one-time search. If it turns into a channel, then it's continuously getting
Right.
a new thing.
Yeah, it sits, all of your channels sit on the right side, and those are the ones that you as an audience member have decided to be your channels and can sit there.
So, and then also with those channels, are they, I mean, you say that it kind of starts automatically downloading. Does it know what it's downloaded already
Yeah, it does.
and go back? So you may,
Well, if it's from a different channel, no. Because the URL, the video file URL itself is different. But if it's on the same channel, we do know, and we don't duplicate efforts.
Hey,
there.
real quick, I mean, I want people to be able to ask anything, but I also don't want it just to be a thing about it's Miro as much as I love it. I just want to just kind of go through, just so we can kind of get a big picture of what we're trying to solve here. I mean, so we've only been able to talk about two things today. So we have the content management system is what we're talking about with like Show in a Box. And then the distribution and playback is what Miro does. There's still all these other things that still need to be solved. And maybe some of you have questions about that, or maybe you have experience with that you want to share, or concerns or something. But then I'll open it back up and we can talk about anything you want.
My question is towards Miro, but I think it's a bigger picture. So I was very interested in how Miro is different than something like Democracy Player. And I'm also interested in this whole co-branding thing that you guys are doing, but I think also speaks to the bigger picture, like people with commercial or branded sites like me were looking to be able to skin a player, to still get our stuff out there, but have it sort of be an open, to drive traffic and that sort of thing, like how you're doing it, maybe how some other people are doing, like maybe skinnable players and things like that.
The first part of your question is interesting because Democracy Player is Miro. We
okay.
made Democracy Player, we changed the name to
Okay.
Miro.
It's hipper.
It's hipper. We really thought it'd be
I love
great.
it. I love it.
We really thought it'd be great if the player of choice was called Democracy, but it became too confusing for people. They thought it was just a political player, or just played political channels. So we changed the name to Miro, which is also easier for various reasons. And the co-branding stuff we do, we're doing more of it now, but you can go to our website and we have documentation showing you how to just put in your own channel guide already, because it's just a URL that we display within the player. So that's something you can do on your own. And you can also decide what pre-subscribed channels you want in your branded player. So that's the skinning that that's how you can brand your own player. I don't know if you guys want to interact.
Anything to say about that?
Yeah.
I appreciate the bigger question. This is just a technical thing, since I just went along while you were talking. And it immediately asked you if you want your file to be in a library. But that library is only accessible to me at this moment, right?
Yeah.
Not to anybody else.
Yeah, it's yours. I know it's on your desktop.
Yeah, it's interesting also, though, the file, at least in this case, happens to be an M2B file, and it's not one in sound, so I'm kind of curious, but that's a technical question, which I'll ask you later from somebody else. On the cycle of the 9 that you're seeing, what in fact is the biggest unanswered one, since you asked?
Sure, the biggest one?
Yeah.
So recording's pretty easy. I think cameras are really come down cheap. Like when we went to Thailand, we actually took these $50 video cameras that are great. They're like little toys, and I think they're going to get cheaper and cheaper, where they just give them out for free on keychains. Video,
I hope so.
the number 2 is the biggest problem we have. Like, how do you edit its video? Right now, you have iMovie on Apple, or Windows. It's Movie Maker that comes free with Windows XP. But if you ever try to edit on a Linux system, it's very frustrating and hard. And that's fair enough, because that's a big challenge. It's hard. Final Cut Pro or iMovie, they spent years, thousands of man hours building that thing.
Can't you say the same thing about Linux, though?
True. What? It's a difficult system.
Yeah, to build.
But I think Linux is getting better. I mean, yeah. So I guess
but usable.
all that stuff. But that's really the biggest problem right now. And
Can I ask you a question about your number 1? Why isn't your number 1 your true number 1? For example, acquisition. What format does that record in?
Right,
What codec does it?
Yeah, there's no open recording either. That's very true.
Right.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I mean, anything. I mean, hardware is difficult for free and open people to deal with, though. I mean, people have talked about that. If we all came together and we bought this factory in China and we started cranking out these things. Like one laptop per child is a good example of people actually trying to build an open, hardware platform. But we all know that. I mean, they have huge resources behind them, and they have huge issues as well.
But the other reason too for recording on, DV codec, which is proprietary, MPEG-4, is that they work with the editing software. So it's not like there's there are open source like Linux editing programs, yes, and I don't know what format they will edit, but
the way we do this is we take it
like
piece by piece and solve the problems that we can solve.
Rick, I was just going to say that what's really interesting is I use Miro, but anything I want to put on this thing, I have to use iTunes.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck on that end.
Yeah.
Similarly, everyone, in terms of acquisition, everyone's stuck with the hardware, or with the codecs that are being used on the hardware that's put out there, and then of course, like Ryan just said, that's connected to what you end up using for editing, and that's and I brought it up because it's a question. I think it is personally, I think it's one of the bigger ones than ones that it's harder for individuals to crack, possibly a little easier for institutions to kind of start to get their
Right. The
you guys.
codec there, number 3, is the other really big one that Kenyatta is talking about. I mean, right now, you know, it's hard to even get your brain around sometimes. Like QuickTime, like, why is that a problem? Like, it's just free, right? Well, not really. I mean, Sean might be able to talk more about this. But,
well, yeah,
you know.
I'm kind of an advocate. I mean, I guess a lot of people say it'd be nice if there were one codec that everybody used.
Like an MP3 of a video, although MP3 is owned by somebody, you know.
Yeah, well, MP4 is a good candidate for that, and there are open source implementations of it that you can get, like FFmpeg or whatever. The thing that's not free about it is the patents, which do expire. I mean, like GIF and JPEG, you know, were both. I know GIF was covered by a patent, but I'm pretty sure that JPEG was. But the GIF patent expired, and now there's no worry here. So that's going to happen with MP4.
Right.
And so there's open source implementations. It's built into a lot of the cameras. All the tools use it. So I don't think that's really that big of a worry. And you know, QuickTime is moving towards that MP4 standard. So it will play MP4 and it can export MP4. So it's not 100% open, but I think it's good enough for most people.
Well, some of the problems that we see, and I think the codec problem is a big one, is that on YouTube they use Flash, which is owned by Adobe, used to be owned by Macromedia, and Flash itself, or the way that YouTube implements it and the way that Flash encoding happens, it's harder to spread that video around. It's harder to take it out and put it on your blog. And whether or not you like that, some company, Adobe, Macromedia, decided that they wanted those videos to not be that way. And you, as a creator or producer, can't make that decision. I completely respect if that's the decision you want to make, but if you want to go the other way, it's much harder. So I think the open source format of like OGG, you do lose some things. I admit it. It's, you know, you do lose some quality, but it means you're in control, and I think that means a lot. But there are other compromises also. So.
You know, to that end, can I ask you a question? There's the we're kind of talking about open source software and as sort of this. It's a political issue. It's an economic issue, right? This thing of self-determination, and that's sort of here. Down here, it's less of Miro because Miro is more like Firefox. You know, I can tell my mom download Miro. She installs it. She gets it. Whereas Show in a Box, there's still the question of I don't want to say barrier to entry, but barrier to participation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what do you sort of do about that, and sort of on a process level of trying to like?
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of like open source stuff is still super geeky. You know, I mean, it still takes time. You have to be willing to commit. You have to be willing to learn and read message boards and join communities and ask for help. I mean, that's why Apple is amazing. You know, you get this computer and it's so easy, and you know they do a good job. I have a Mac, but I think that though over time this stuff does become easier. I think Miro is a great example of something that they've just made really easy. And there's no reason why any of this other stuff can't be as easy.
Well, I think, I think the open source stuff sounds difficult to deal with or to participate in, but you don't have to participate. And I think that's because the open source community is changing. I think that in the past it's definitely been reserved for the geeks, but I think that the open source community is getting political in of itself and sees that their work is political and decentralized in nature. And I think that WordPress is something you can just download and use. And whether or not you decide to use these plugins is fine, or whether or not you decide to make these plugins is fine. But WordPress is going to evolve closer to what you want as a producer and as a creator because of its nature as a political. I wouldn't necessarily say the WordPress makers are political, but I think the open source community itself is often forced to move in the direction to serve the people who use it. So I wouldn't discount what the open source community has to share, just because because you can participate. I think that part drives where it goes.
I think also to speak to that as well, a big part of, you know, like Shonabox and like WordPress is the education. It's the documentation of how to do it. It's not just like, oh, we built these things, go use them. It's like, okay, we built these things, now I'm going to tell you how to use it and how to tweak it so you can make it your own and how you can change it. You know, like for me, that's huge. I built freevlog.org, which is like a beginner's site to learn how to video blog for free. And it was all about telling people how to compress video, how to get a blog, how do you distribute stuff and watch it with Miro and get an RSS feed and things like that. And that's what we're trying to do with Shonabox now too. Like, okay, how do you download and install WordPress? Because it's not easy if you've never done it before. So we're gonna take you step by step in a video that we have, you know, so that's.
Well, what made you, actually, are any questions before I ask one? Okay. What made, I mean, you created freevlog.org, and now you're kind of creating free as in freedom vlog.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
What made you make that jump?
So I think the jump was because we wanted to get to a different level, like a different step up. Like, okay, like I have this journal format, like blog, but I want it on my own server, and now I want to offer like 5 different formats and 5 different RSS feeds. Plus, you know, maybe I want a forum or something else connected to it. It's like it got a little bit bigger. You know, my personal blog is still like I showed you. It's just got one subscribe. It's got QuickTime. It's just, you know, a list, which I'm not crazy about. But I wanted to expand with this other you know, level, a different level.
It says here in the notes for the meeting that people were going to talk about FilmForge and Boomi as content management systems. Is there anybody here who?
There was someone who was supposed to be here who didn't show up.
Yeah. I mean, something like a WordPress is just one example of a content management system that you can use. There's Boomi and Joomla and Drupal and other systems, depending on what kind of community you're trying to start. Well, one thing I'd like to kind of talk about too is that, you know, YouTube, of course, is a big animal in the room that we all talk around. I mean, so like a community site. I mean, I just put an example of ourmedia.org just as one. But I think it's really important for those of us who are really interested in certain kind of communities to not just think YouTube has to be the only place, that you can create at your own site where like you're gonna highlight all the, you know, Indian videos, or you're gonna highlight all the, you know, housing rights videos. Like that's super, super important. I mean, you know what, you could even host them on YouTube, but it's good for all of us to help be filters on the internet as well, you know. And that then becomes a channel that people could watch in Miro and stuff.
You know, we don't have folks from FilmForge or Plumi here. However, there are some other places we can talk about. We've touched briefly on Codex, Ogtheora, there's things like FFmpeg, tools you can use to take your video into one format and put it into another format for the web, which is great. There are 2 things we haven't touched on. Actually, one thing first is licensing. How does licensing fit into this open source sort of approach in the open source world for you guys?
I mean, obviously Creative Commons is a huge force for a lot of us creators, giving us more control, giving our viewers more control. That's been huge. For our video bloggers, that's been huge. I mean, Creative Commons, that's like where it's at for us.
And then is it sort of open source up to a point? If you're like a true open source advocate, are you saying, okay, I'm going to allow derivatives, et cetera,
yeah, there's been a good debate about that. You know, what's the most free version of Creative Commons, you know? And it just, for me, it just depends on who you are and what you want people to, you know, like for me, I use non-commercial attribution. So anyone can make derivative works from my from my work, and they can give me attribution, and that's great for me. Some people think that's too restrictive or not free enough. Like, you should be able to allow people to use it commercially because that's the ultimate freedom. Well, I don't want that. And I have a choice not to. Like, literally, I've had people argue with me about that, which is fine, but I don't, it's my work. I can license it that way. So that's why I love Creative Commons. There's so many choices.
And I think part of that too goes with the hosting part. I mean, again, YouTube is a great place to host its video. And what a lot of people are doing is that they just host it everywhere. Like, there's actually these new sites where you upload it once and then they send it out to, like, you know, it's 50 different places, because, you know, the name of the game is just getting eyeballs, you know. But I think, though, depending on the work that you're doing, you should be aware of, like, when you host it somewhere, that it gets out of your hands in the sense of, like, for instance, like with YouTube, we have a friend who, what he does is he looks at other YouTube videos, and he'll sometimes, like, make fun of those people. Like, for instance,
comments on them.
he'll, like,
criticizes or
yeah, it's kind of like a blog post. If you were to write a blog post, a text blog post, I might take some of your words and then talk about it, you know, and maybe I don't agree. And that's what he was doing, where, like, there was a new age woman who was, like, doing a video about being calm and new age, and he kind of put himself in the video and made a critique of her being that way. And so what she did, she's very angry, and she threatened to tell its YouTube and was going to, you know, say that he broke her copyright and then to have his account canceled, which is very possible, and then have all of his videos taken down. And, you know, that's a problem. And so he actually ended up, through our network, getting a lawyer through the EFF, who we heard from on Saturday. And this lawyer sent a letter to this woman about fair use, and everything got good. But, you know, that is a concern that, you know, those of us who might be doing stuff that isn't just funny, it's videos, need to be concerned about, and something that we should all think about, you know.
Can you guys talk a little bit about what models you foresee for remuneration of content creators?
Money? Yeah, it all comes down to that, right? Yeah.
Within an open source.
Utility for the Radiohead system?
Yes.
Like a pay-what-you-will?
Yes, I actually didn't mention that accidentally. We had a project called Have Money Will Vlog, and we built a plugin, as we are doing very often, to raise money. It was basically plugged into PayPal, and it had this little, like, thermometer on it that was like, you've raised this much so far, and here are all the people who have contributed, and links back to their sites, giving people credit, because there's a lot of little widgets for you to, like, raise money with, but they never, like, give credit to who did it. You can be anonymous if you want, but they never sort of did the things we wanted them to do. So we built this pledge drive plugin, and we're still developing it now for Show in a Box too, where you can make it look however you want. You can use it on your WordPress site. I actually, let me look for it.
While she's looking for it, what we're doing on the Miro end is we've always had on the table, and it was one of the biggest things that people cared about, which is one-click subscription, one-click donations. And the way it would work is when you have someone's channel or subscribe to in Miro, at the bottom of the video is just a button that allows you to click and donate directly to the creator of the channel, and it goes, you know, money goes from your PayPal or whatever else account to their PayPal or whatever else account. And it's a pretty elegant solution to that problem, because you can decide to have your channel as a pay to subscribe only, where you have to, you know, pay for the channel to get it in your Miro or wherever else, or you can have a donation system where you decide, the viewer gets to decide how much to donate. No, the component we have now is we have buttons that you can put on your site that makes it so people can subscribe to your channel easily with one click. If they don't have Miro, they get Miro, and your channel comes subscribed already. But honestly, our big goal, or what we've decided, is that we need to get even larger numbers of audience members before we can actually implement the one-click donation stuff. We think that it's very, very important to put focus, or get more focus on, get more eyeballs onto Miro, so that everything comes together. I think things will get more sorted out over time, and the choices that you make in terms of licensing, codec, and all of that stuff does play into what is going to come out. So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's a different panel would definitely, we talk about the excitement of the future of advertising, and I'm sure that is its model. But I think for a certain kind of content, I believe more in, we need to change habits where we need to pay what we want to see, So if I'm going to pay $10 to see a Hollywood film, why not pay $10 to see a channel about, again, like things on housing rights or something like that. It's like the NPR, its model. It could very well be a new habit that happens online.
Well, and also, I'm sorry. This happens. There's a big argument over music and being able to download music and things like that. The same conversation is going to come up for video, and the EFF and myself and others who have worked on downhill battle stuff, if you've heard about that, have always been advocates of a flat rate system, and that means you pay $5 or $10 a month. Honestly, just like you pay your cable bill, pay $5 or $10 a month and get any and all the content you want. And there's technology to make it so that all of the creators get a part of that, and you get as much as people watch. So, and it turns out that people make more or equal to what they make now with the current way we deal with copyright and things like that. So
that's the Rhapsody sort of model, right?
Yeah.
Can you do that and still stay true to the open source bit? Because I'm guessing there's a fair amount of DRM that's going to be in place for.
Well, I think it goes the other way around. If you have a system like that, then don't really need DRM.
Everyone agrees.
Because you get if that system existed, then you want your video to get distributed far and wide, because the more it gets spread, the more money you make. So I would think that it sort of to me, it seems to solve a lot of problems.
And one thing I think I would be it's responsible to not mention is just also we have to remember that the internet is a tool itself. That these cables and the Wi-Fi is a tool, and that its neutrality is really, really important. And one of my fears is that here we are, as media activists, we've come all this way, we've made all these tools, it's all easy, and then suddenly, the people that own the network start hurting us. They start saying, well, actually Comcast sponsored its videos will actually download a lot faster than my videos will happen. And currently, there's no regulation or law saying they can't do that. They can very well do that. And they would have done it if there hadn't already been a counter world, fighting against them and saying that that's a big problem. And
corporations and commercial companies fight on every single end, and they're smart, and they think about net neutrality or their side of it as a way to win.
And there's buzzwords you'll hear like traffic shaping, things like this. Like they need to kind of control what's going through because they're helping you by making things faster. They're shaping.
I actually have some friends who started a company that did traffic shaping for internal use on corporate networks. I mean, it is a term that's
fair enough.
That's been around, and not to be too anti-corporate here, but there are a lot of corporations who want to see net neutrality because it's important to their business. Right. So they're on both sides of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want everything to be good, and as long as everyone's transparent. But we find though a lot of these, internet in this country is basically controlled by 4 major companies, right? Four major, yeah.
From
you
the
know.
backbone, yeah.
And there is a lot of transparency on what they
Who are the
are
four?
doing. But Comcast, Time Warner,
I can't remember.
AT&T, and
Verizon.
it's Verizon. Yeah.
But that's just in terms of, you're talking about sort of the
Broad.
broadband.
Yeah.
You're not talking about the backbone, you're talking about, right. So I have a question. So if you're,
Any of those
oh yeah.
four, I just want to just go to
Sure, sure.
the horror show. If any of those four suddenly ended up under the control of a fascist administration, then in fact that could be stopped, right? I'm asking generally because
Yeah.
2 days ago I asked the question last night and I didn't quite get the
That,
answer.
that they would be stopped?
That
or-
the internet, that access and
I mean-
could actually be ended. I'm just asking.
Sure,
the horror
absolutely,
show,
yeah.
just-
You mean for folks in the
Yeah,
US?
like, you know, I guess.
You mean for
if-
folks in the
I
US?
guess if like a soldiers like surrounded the place and locked it down, sure.
Like in China, it can be done with firewalls. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
right.
You can
ways
do it
to
anywhere.
it.
Well, actually, so that's, actually, here's a question, not just for you guys, but other folks in the audience. And everything we've been talking about so far in terms of open source has been sort of on a product level with something like Miro, with something like Shonabox and WordPress and everything else. We have the protocols are open. Protocols of the net are open, right? We're talking about process, ways to be able to deal with this in terms of process. Creative Commons licensing, making sure that folks know how to use these, use the product stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Does it come down to a policy fight of keeping, if you want to go open source, or do you have the open source tools to be able to make the fight that'll keep,
Right.
where you're not going to have the military surrounding?
Yeah,
wherever?
I mean, again, yeah, we're talking about multiple at level here, but my strategy is we build things that actually work and are better, and then they'll get mimicked and work in the commercial world. We make what we want to
Why?
work
Why do they mimic it?
because, I mean, it's capitalism. I mean, capitalism, the beauty of it is that they just absorb anything that works, They absorb the counterculture,
Okay.
they'll absorb open source. So it's kind of a good thing, Like Michael Moore talked about, he was like, it's so crazy that like I made this totally anti-George Bush, whatever, it's neocon film, and I made $100 million. Like that's kind of the beauty of capitalism in some sense, if you use it in the right way.
Tiffany, I have a quick question for you. In the past year, I bought my mom an iPod Touch and an Apple TV. I would love for her to use Miro, but she's in the iTunes world. So is there anything in the roadmap for you guys to be able to extend beyond the desktop?
Yeah, Uber geeks already do it on their computer. They already have figured out ways to connect their computer to their TV and transport all of that video there. We're going to try to make it easier, and there are definitely other organizations that are helping along with that. But just to go back to the previous question, I think that everyone has a part to play. I think as creators you have choices, and the choices you make add up in numbers, and that means a lot both in the bill processing part that happens in Washington, which obviously gets affected by lobbies and whatever large or small efforts there are to convince people one way or the other. So there are different ways that different people, based on their desires, plug into the fight. People fight for what they want to do. So even just making a small choice about like using WordPress, I think ends up having a political effect. So I think that's important to think about.
And as my favorite band, it's Fugazi says, it's not what they sell, it's what we buy, So vote with your dollar as well.
So it's a very overarching question, but I was wondering if there's any opinions on what you think is considered the most agnostic player, or if there isn't truly an agnostic player, what would be a strategy that could be employed that would be
Sure. It's, the most agnostic player is this open source one.
In terms of software or hardware?
Oh, that could just be, you know, used by other people that across playing QuickTimes or.
Oh,
Sure,
okay.
it's called
VLC.
a VLC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it plays anything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, VLC is great.
Aren't you guys based off of?
V,
Yes.
here, I'll bring it up right here.
Video ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it used to stand for something.
Right.
Yeah, it'll play everything.
The
It's
little,
great.
the little cone, right? The little,
Yeah.
Yeah, the
It-
VLC media player.
It's free
That's
and
what
open
Miro is
source.
based off of.
Yeah.
We,
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have a VLC player.
No,
It's
it's
a
a
player.
player that it'll download, so you can throw anything into it and it'll play it. So it'll play DVDs, it'll play any videos on your computer.
But it doesn't have the download function that Miro has.
Right.
So,
Right.
and Miro
Right.
uses VLC internally then, so so Miro will play
Plays
anything that'll
anything,
play,
yeah.
plus it does the download.
Yeah.
Except for the M2V
And
file.
I mean, and the other part that Miro, I mean, in terms of technology, Miro is a bunch of open source software tools put together to make for a TV experience. But you can also use Miro as your download client because we have BitTorrent technology behind it, which allows people to download video from other people in a cost-efficient way. So that's something else that we haven't talked about is like bandwidth costs. If you allow people to download using BitTorrent, those bandwidth costs are very minimal. Just because of the way the technology works, you don't have to pay high bandwidth costs because your file gets spread out in that way. So.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we're talking open source video, but audio is part of video, and so I'm wondering if you have any comments on open source places where you can go to get free audio that aren't restricted by licensing.
Like it's music or?
Music.
For audio encoding. Yeah.
Yeah, there's CC Mixter, which is a Creative Commons. It's ccmixter.org. So all the music there is like remixes and mashups of stuff that people have made, like independent people.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
It's CC Mixter, MIXTER .org. That's where I get a lot of my music that I use in my videos.
It's actually-
Basically they a lot of the licenses that people use are non-commercial. So basically they're saying you can't use this commercially, but use it however with video in your podcast, whatever.
So you mean commercially as trying to sell something?
Right. Like Nike can't come in and be like, I love this beat, I'm gonna use it. Or they could and they need to negotiate with that person, figure something out. So I love CC Mixter. There's another, like, I think PodSafe.
Mm-hmm.
PodSafe, you have to Google it. I'm not quite sure exactly what the address is. But I think those are also like, use our stuff for your podcasts and your videos. I don't know if that's Creative Commons or not.
Well, I'm
They're
gonna,
Podshow.
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 Is it Pod? No.
It's PodSafe, actually,
PodSafe,
not Podshow.
yeah.
I don't think they're associated.
Well, it's
Yes, it
Podsafe
is.
Music Network, but
Oh, they are, okay.
that's their.
Okay, cool.
Really?
They- I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought they were separate.
That's funny. And then actually in terms of codecs, couple of
Like
any
audio
open source
codecs?
audio codecs?
Yeah,
you can recommend?
there's an audio version of Og Theora, which is the open source video. It's called Og Vorbis. Funky names. That's the open source codec for audio.
Cool.
thank you.
Anything else? Or?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, there's a new group that I heard about that's based in the Netherlands called Spread Open Media. They're trying to encourage people to use the Theora.
Yeah.
Then none of you guys mentioned Cultura. This I know it's still in beta, but is that it's a commercial product, but it's open, right? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Can you explain what that is?
Oh, it was presented on Friday. I guess it's a web-based video editor that you can use to put together Creative Commons licensed audio and video tracks.
Isn't it free as in beer?
Yeah.
Isn't it
What do you think?
Cultura?
Cultura, K-A-L-T-U-R-A.
Yeah.
And the great thing about it is you can pull from Flickr and YouTube all within the browser.
Cool.
Collaborative.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I've never used it. I only heard about it the other day. So.
Cool.
One thing I wanted to add, just to flesh out what PCF believes in, so I don't get misquoted, but I don't think that you need, if you don't politically align yourself as completely anti-corporate, that's not what we're trying to say either. I think that the playing field just needs to remain leveled, and that commercial companies should have to play alongside independent companies, and you know, all the different parts of that should stay open to everyone.
Yeah,
so.
This definitely should never be like an anti-corporation kind of thing, but I think that if we really want to believe in a free a market, it's really got to be a level playing field. And I think that's a problem in this country, is that we have a lot of people talking about free markets and all this stuff, but really it's about people in power wanting to make sure they stay in power by limiting choices. And so I think all we're trying to do is just make sure those choices are out there.
You know, it's funny how much of the free and open source movement is sort of framed by the Stallmans of the world, right? It's all about the political, it's all about the economic, which are the major factors, no doubt. However, even if you don't find yourself aligning yourself with those particular matters, there's still that question of dominance. There's still that question of being able to deal with the fact that YouTube isn't going to put a local community group's video up on the front page. Therefore, the ability to be able to attract eyeballs is really low. There's the fact that if you actually upload your video to some service, they may decide that they don't, that in your message there's things in there that they think that are going to cause lawsuits down the way, and so therefore the importance of your message isn't as important as them making sure they don't get sued. Whatever it ends up being, there's still that sort of no matter what, you can still attach to this idea of trying to be able to create diversity, be able to help preserve diversity, to be able to help make sure that the dominant culture isn't the only one that gets heard, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is something that you can start to do by making these small choices that end up meaning a lot down the road. So it's cool. So it sounds like, are we ending?
Yeah. It's
half an hour early. This is great.
So thanks a lot for coming, guys. We appreciate it.